Before the health emergency, Boston's food sector was a leading source of opportunity and innovation, everything from new restaurants to food trucks and specialty products to new platforms for home delivery. And one of the hotspots for innovation was a nonprofit business incubator in Dorchester, Commonwealth Kitchen. To tell us about efforts to help those businesses during the pandemic is the kitchen's executive director and co-founder, Jen Faigel. Thank you very much for being with us, Jen.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate you taking the time to talk to us about the work that's going on in Boston, where an awful lot of families are getting hurt right now with what's going on with COVID.
A lot of our viewers are familiar with your program, but not everybody is. So tell us about the cross-section of people that you've helped through Commonwealth Kitchen.
Sure. So the organization, before the crisis happened, we were a shared kitchen where people could literally come in and start their dream of starting a food company, kind of like a gym membership for food businesses. So you think you can come in, rent our kitchen by the hour, and we're going to support you with permit, license, insurance, recipe, and everything from food trucks to caterers to bakers. On average, more than 50 companies are members of our shared kitchen, and from all over the city of Boston, from all sorts of cultures and religions and race and ethnicity. You name it, I think we probably have it.
Well, you've been a great source of success stories. One that we've been acquainted with over the years is Anthony Caldwell. He just opened a business called 50 Kitchen in Dorchester, and then the epidemic hit. Tell us about him.
So Anthony is one of those amazing entrepreneurs that we have who came to us having had, struggles in his life as a lot of people do, and wanting to get on the right path back to being somebody who could provide for his community. And he wanted to do it through food, which is, for all of us, food is a very personal connection to our family, to our cultures, to our community. And so for him, he really wanted to give back by opening a restaurant was his dream. So we helped him initially by getting his catering business going. We then connected him to the location in Dorchester, and we helped him work through menu, pricing, the financing of that business to get him up and running. And then literally the COVID happened and he shut down almost immediately. And he's one of many of the businesses we've worked with that are in that same boat. So he's in that case. Jamaica Me Hungry, which opened in Jamaica Plain a few months ago, has also closed down. Juicy Greens, Exodus Bagels, Down Home Delivery, Delectable Desires. Those are all businesses that started with Commonwealth Kitchen that are have retail spaces in the city of Boston, largely all closed down because of the COVID virus.
Well, one thing we hear from different levels of government right now about helping businesses is that we'll give you a loan. How does that go over with the people that you deal with?
Not well, as you can imagine. For an awful lot of our businesses, they were already undercapitalized. We work largely with businesses that are owned by women, immigrants, and people of color. So they come to us without having that network of family and friends that they can rely on for that first bit of money they need to start their business. This is the food industry, which even before COVID was considered risky. And so it's very hard to get lending to begin with. And so most of these businesses were already working paycheck to paycheck. And when the COVID happened and they have to close down, it's unclear if or when they will ever be able to open their business. So who in their right mind would take on a loan in this crisis moment? In addition to that, many of the SBA programs that are part of the federal stimulus package require personal guarantees. They require minimum credit scores, things that do not make sense for an awful lot of businesses we work with. And so they are stuck, losing their business, losing their income, and not knowing where their next paycheck's going to come from.
Well, one of the things that's going on right now is that, everything is being put on hold. There are things that these business people have to deal with right away. What are they exactly?
So we've been working with our folks on everything from those who have staff, just the process of having to lay people off, how painful that is. This is friends and family and networks. So working through what that process looks like, helping them as business owners collect unemployment insurance, because when the Federal CARES Act and the new stimulus plan, people who are sole proprietors and self-operating actually can apply for unemployment insurance. So we've had to walk people through that process, think through how to have hard conversations with their landlords about rent, think through, talk to their banks if they do have any kind of loans for equipment or their food trucks, like talk to them to think about how they extend terms. So a lot of different pieces that are both about their kind of emotional and their spiritual well-being, as well as thinking about what the need is for the business, understanding that for most of them, they need to pivot and be on hold for now. One thing we saw right when businesses started closing, and you see this now, a lot of restaurants that are still trying really hard to stay open and work doing delivery, pickup only. And what you're seeing increasingly is those restaurants are closing one by one because the cost of keeping the doors open and keeping staff employed does not get fully covered by the cost of the small numbers of people coming to pick up food. And it's putting an awful lot of their workers at risk. So we've been advocating for an awful lot of folks to say the best thing you can do now to take care of yourselves and your workers is to go home, sadly collect unemployment insurance, start to think about what the pivot can be for your business, and keep thinking about things like social media, marketing, so that people know that you're still around and that you want to come back in business, and just kind of trying to help people navigate what the next month or so of complete uncertainty looks like for an awful lot of folks.
So at Commonwealth Kitchen, you're mostly shutting down, but you're also pivoting. What does that mean exactly?
Yeah, we're still scratching our heads a bit. So when the crisis really hit, we saw back in the middle of March, a lot of our companies were shutting down. When all of the office buildings downtown started closing, our food trucks started losing their business. They started to decide it was time to take a break. When the farmers markets shut down, more of our companies started to close, and we realized that working in the world of coronavirus required us to think about our kitchen differently. So think about a shared kitchen. You might have as many as 6 or 7 different companies all working, shoulder to shoulder together in our kitchen. Well, that can't happen anymore because we're in this world of social distancing, and we have to be thinking about the potential of transmission of the virus. So we made the decision to close our kitchen on March 20th. Completely to all of our companies and ourselves, and really try to think our way through what are the requirements we can put in place that will keep our workers safe, our business owners safe, and the public safe as we reopen under the terms of coronavirus. So for example, when we do reopen, every person walking in the door to our building, we are going to take their temperature. If their temperature is over 100 degrees, they have to go home. And if they're working with 3 other people and they were all in our kitchen together, if one person goes home, the entire team needs to go home because we don't want to risk more infection for more people. So all of that had to get figured out, which was really complicated. And while we were doing that, we kept hearing from community organizations, from city and state agencies, that as more and more people are stuck at home and losing their employment, that there was an increasing need for people who need something to eat, and they need emergency food, and that groups like the Greater Boston Food Bank, which do incredible work, are mostly getting people groceries. And that you think about seniors, for example, that were getting their meals at a community center in what would be called a congregate setting, right? So we're all together, we're going to eat together. Now can't do that anymore. So they got to be fed at home in their own apartments with fully prepared food. Or families who are just overwhelmed by what's happening and needing prepared food. So we made the choice to say, let's pivot our operations and start to focus in on the needs for the emergency food work. Because we know how to make a lot of food. We can do it really well. We can do culturally diverse options. And we understand through all of our food trucks and caterers how to think about food safety in this crazy time. And so we're starting to work with some of the community health centers. We actually have our first delivery of nearly 400 meals that will feed over 1,600 families going to Dimmick Community Health Center this Friday.
That's in Roxbury, right?
Roxbury, that's right. And we're partnering on this with Fresh Food Generation, which is one of the companies that works in our kitchen. So we're employing some of their staff. We're working with a lot of the farm partners we work with, because not only are our businesses being hurt, but all the farmers that are in Greater Boston that used to serve all the restaurants and the colleges, they're all hurting as well. And so we're trying to source ingredients from those farmers, make delicious, ethnically diverse food. We're also going to pull ingredients from some of our member companies who have been hurt. So for example, we had 2 companies that were getting ready to sell sauces to Harvard University. So we have 80 gallons of Mexican mole sauce and about 100 gallons of a West African sunflower seed-based sauce that's sitting in my freezer. So we thought, well, let's buy those sauces from our companies. We'll get them a little bit of money. We'll integrate those sauces on our menu, and we can get some really delicious, wonderful food out to the community. So that starts this week. We're gonna have a chance to understand what does it look like to work in our kitchen when we have to work 6 feet apart and with all of these other rules. What does it look like to do the distribution into the community and understand how that works? Because we know that there's a lot more demand that goes beyond the Dimmock Health Center. And so we're talking to Codman Square Health Center, to Friends of the Children Boston, to the Boston Public Health Commission, all of whom have asked us to get involved in supporting this need for additional food to feed families, which we think is probably going to go on for the next month, if not longer.
By the way, there's a lot of things that will go back to normal, maybe even fairly soon, but in the longer term, can you think of something that you're going to have to do differently for an indefinite period of time?
Oh my God, people keep asking me to anticipate what the world is going to look like, and think about a world that's in recession when offices are probably going to now be more used to having people work remotely. So will the food trucks be great because sadly a lot of the restaurants downtown might not open right away? Will the food trucks be terrible because everybody's still working from home all summer? Will there be consumer confidence about going to farmers markets? Maybe people will be so excited to get outside that the farmers markets will do great, or maybe people will feel like I'm still nervous. So I think we're still very much trying to take it day by day and understanding that part of what we need to do is continue to try to stay ahead of what we see going on in the world and get much better and sharper about how we provide financial support to our businesses. We've had many people talk to us, do I need to think about bankruptcy? Like, oh my goodness, that's a horrible thing to think about. How do we convince people, like, don't use your credit cards, don't go into further debt if you can help it? Like, so I think we are going to find ourselves both really trying to think through where the market is going, how we can support both the member companies in our kitchen, but also the network of businesses we work with. There's probably 200 food businesses we work with on a regular basis. Restaurants, caterers, bakers, all sorts of companies, and trying to help them think, how do you best manage for the next 18 months? Because I think it's probably going to take that long for a lot of our folks to decide how they're going to pivot. And I think, sadly, we're going to see a lot of our companies are not going to make it. And I think that's true for an awful lot of industries, and certainly in the food industry and restaurants. Some are saying that as many as 30 to 40% of restaurants across the country may not be able to open again. So that tells you something about how messed up the financing of restaurants are, that they're that fragile. And the food industry in general is a very fragile industry. And I think we are seeing firsthand where the challenges are.